About 7 p.m., the Foxborough Planning Board will come to order. Any old business, planner report?
We could just remind everybody that this meeting is
yes.
being recorded and
For
broadcast.
the public's edification, this meeting is being recorded. There may be people on Zoom as well if they want to call in. And you should just be aware of that and for the record. Do you have a planner's report?
I do have a planner's report, but
why
it's
don't
not,
you-
it's up here. It's
Yeah,
not
that's
on
fine.
paper.
You can lay it on us.
Okay. So as of Monday, we now have our new town manager, John Cordair. And he had a 3-day overlap with Bill Keegan, but as of today, Bill Keegan did not come to work. So John is now officially the man in charge, so I'm sure we'll be meeting him. I'll suggest he come to a planning board meeting, but we'll give him a minute to kind of, he's, meeting everybody frantically right now, so we give him a minute for that.
That's what I want to do.
What, come meet us?
Yeah, come meet us.
I know. Why wouldn't he? Of course he does.
People.
So that's big news, obviously, for the town, and but we have all, we know where everything will go well, and we'll just be working with a new manager. Parking lot renewals are coming up, the special permits for the temporary lots. Diana, do you know what month did we schedule that yet?
Looks like May 11th.
So May 11th was what we're targeting for those hearings. As always, we've had some trouble with attendance lately, so as always, if you could just, the minute you find out there's attendance problems, I'm not looking at any one of you.
Also as a collective.
Yes. We need to just let us know so that we can do it. Because, like, for example, these public hearing on the parking lots, those are time sensitive. They expire June 30th. So we have to make sure we get these taken care of, get appeals periods over and whatnot. So just keep us apprised and try to keep an eye on that calendar.
What is the appeals period on those?
It's a special permit, so it'd be 20 day.
20 days.
Yeah. Auditorium is underway. We're doing an architectural assessment of that property, just with respect to systems and conditions and whatnot, to get an idea. I think I've mentioned that, to get an idea of what the town is sitting on. We are also having the hazardous materials assessed to see what the cost might be. We all assume there'd be remediation, so we'll stay tuned for that. That's going to take a little time. They're just going to get in there next week, at least the architectural guys. The Walnut Street 40B project was approved. Well, the board voted to approve the project, but they have not yet written or issued a decision. So, but it was a 3-0 vote, so we anticipate it going forward through the decision process. But that's very exciting for the town. And in fact, yesterday when I was at the State House, I saw Ashley Stolba. She's the undersecretary that was responsible for the MassWorks grant. So I was able to tell her that the project was approved, and she already knew. She actually said, "Oh, we are watching, we're monitoring." She's like, "That's great news. That's fabulous." So the state is very invested in this process as well. So I was shocked she already knew. It was probably Jay Barrows who told her, but still, it was like, wow, they're paying attention. I did, Stephen Fry reached out to me regarding 29 Wall Street site visit. He suggested tomorrow. I told him I wasn't available.
He always uses so much notice.
Well, this was a day or so ago, but
Yeah.
yeah, he suggested tomorrow, but I said I'm not in tomorrow. By the way, I'm not in tomorrow. So he's going to shoot for maybe next week. So I'll keep you posted on that. He does have occupants for some commercial building. I believe it's an attorney and maybe something else. So great. I don't know any details on that, but I believe that's the case. We had the Mass Gaming Commission come out and visit last week, I think, to take a look at all our files for our grants and kind of do a mini audit, and I think we did okay. I'm not in jail. But, you know, we just submitted a whole questionnaire in support of our next round of grants that we've asked for. So I meant to bring down, and I forgot, the brochure and business cards, but we actually have like brochure and business cards. And 2 weeks ago, I went to Patriot Place, and the Massachusetts Visitor and Convention Bureau had brought in, had a program called Destination New England, and they brought in hundreds and hundreds of tour operators from all over the world, and they basically bring them all over the region, you know, from Springfield. One of their favorite places was the Basketball Hall of Fame, but they were also as far down as Yarmouth. I mean, they were all over the state and the region, and because of our tourism effort, they spent an afternoon at the Rentham Village Outlet, and then they came over to Patriot Place, and we hosted them for lunch. So I sat at lunch with, I think it was 7 operators from the Netherlands and 1 from Belgium, and we talked about the region. So it was kind of cool. So we're starting to get a little legs, as we say, and they seem to be interested in the region. And they were saying we don't only want to see a city, we want to see these small towns. So hopefully our small town will be one that interests future tourists. And then lastly, today I was in Falmouth because, ta-da, I now have a new certificate. I just took a class called Supervisory Leadership Development Program. So I was just in Falmouth all day and did this for 3 days. And, well, not 3 consecutive days, but learning how to be a better supervisor. So got my little certificate a couple hours ago.
Well, is it true?
I haven't practiced yet. They're going to love it. You know, I was like laughing thinking of them because, you know, the program is like in a binder this thick and it has all these conversation starters with your employees. See, look at that face. I could call Diana in for meetings and we could talk about how she could have more fulfillment, and we're going to do that. So anyway, that's all my report
Looking like
for
a
the day. That's all I have for the day. Thanks.
Okay. So we have some minutes that we need to approve, February 23rd, March 2nd, and March 31st.
I'd make a motion we approve the minutes for February 23rd as submitted.
I'll second that.
Any further questions? All those in favor? Aye.
I can't make this one.
March 2nd. Anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written for March 2nd.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain on that.
And March 31st, is there anyone?
I'd make that motion that we approve March 31st minutes as submitted.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Quick question on procedure here, Paige.
Yes,
Because
sir.
all these warrant articles are affiliated, can we just open one thing, or do we have to open each one
Well,
individually?
the way it's kind of advertised is individual, right, Gabby? Yeah.
Okay, then that's the way we'll do it.
Or we could do something else if you wanted to in the meantime, and then get back to it and do them all at once it's past 7:15.
Right, so we have 8 minutes right now, that minimum that we have to do something with, so.
Right,
Are the folks here for the informal discussion?
they are.
You'd like to come up early?
Would you like to come up early?
I would love it.
Let's do that.
So let me share my screen.
Is anybody on Zoom?
And actually, you have your, this one's a little different from what you have in front of you, but good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Buckley from Bay Colony Group, and I'm here representing the applicant, CrossFit Torque and Chase Lumber, for an expansion of the CrossFit Torque facility located at 127 Washington Street. Excuse me for my voice. So what I've showed you here up on the board, not on what you have there, is this is the CrossFit torque that was originally approved by the board in 2013. And what that is, it was back then, it was a 4,000 square foot facility. And this is on one piece of property. So Chase Lumber and this facility is on one piece. So it's all combined. It's multiple uses on one piece. So what this was a fitness studio. It's not really a gym, it's a fitness studio, which is, I think is different from a gym. The place is not packed early in the morning or during the day and stuff. These are mostly classes, or actually they're all classes that are held throughout the day and early evening. This was Don Chase's daughter, and she still runs it. And what we did is, at the time, this heavy gray area, this was parking that was added at the time, and then this is the fitness studio. And this was pretty close to what they actually built. And then I think everybody knows where Chase Lumber is. So if you drive up there, you'll see, you'll come in, there's two entrances. There's parking in the front, there's parking over here on the side. Of course, these spaces are gone now. They have a gravel parking lot that's been there forever. I went back on Google Earth as far back as they go, and it's always been there. And then there's, of course, the drive around in the building. So I just wanted to show you that, and now I'm going to put up the next drawing, which is the one you have in front of you. So this is the drawing of what they would like to do. So they've been successful in their business, and what they're proposing is the construction of a 3,200 square foot addition at the rear of the existing building. So the existing building is 80 feet wide, and it's 50 feet deep. This addition will be 80 feet wide and about 40 feet deep. And it will be the same type of building as that's there now. It's a metal building, it's red. And actually the roof slopes to the rear. This will continue to slope to the rear. There's plenty of height in there for the building. And so it's a pretty straightforward and vanilla project. The way this existing fitness studio is, there's a drain system along in the back here that captures the roof runoff and infiltrates it up to a certain amount. But there's also down here, there's a catch basin, which there's no grades on here, so you can't see it. But everything comes out of this parking lot, goes down into this catch basin, and it gets pumped up to a stormwater basin in the back here, and then it drains off toward Rentham. The reason for that is because, I think you've heard me say it before, is Mass DOT will not let you do a direct connection into their drain systems. And you can see on this site, it's not like there's room to put basins or anything. So we had to go that route. But so in this particular case, what we're proposing, what you see here is we don't want to build more parking. And when I meet with my clients, whenever I have a site plan approval or anything, I always ask them, one of the questions I ask them is, we're required by zoning to build you a certain amount of parking, but how much parking do you need for your business? Sometimes it's more than what zoning requires. Most of the time, it's not, but we just go with it. But in this particular case, we don't want to build any more parking. They think that this is more than adequate for what they want to do. So what we're going to be coming before the board with is we'll be coming, this is a special permit because it's in a water resource protection district. But under our zoning, under a section, what section is it? 6.1.6, it allows a 25% reduction by special permit. So the board can grant a reduction in the amount of parking required to be built by special permit. So what does that mean? So in this particular case, this facility needs 79 spaces. Up in the corner there, you can read it on your thing. So we need a total of 79 spaces. What we have here is 45 spaces, but we need 59. 59 is 75% of 79. So what we want to do here is we will capture the additional parking in the back of the Chase Lumber building, and we'll stripe this additional parking back here, which I doubt anybody will ever use, but we'll stripe it so that it exists on the site. So the site itself will have the required number of striped spaces. the bylaw also requires us to set aside the area for the additional parking. So the additional parking would be about 21 spaces. So what we would do is set aside this area here in the kind of brownish color, where this is the existing gravel area where they park now anyways. And we would set that aside to be the future parking that if it was ever required, it would be available again, which is required by the bylaw. So that's about it. And we just wanted to get the board's take on this. I mean, on the design, if there's any issues, sometimes things come up that we don't know about and our clients don't tell us about. But also, to make sure that the board is comfortable with the granting the special permit for the 25% reduction.
Is this still going to be family operated?
Yes. Miss
It was the
Chase.
son, wasn't it? That was
Daughter.
the daughter that started the,
Yep. And she still operates it.
Is it just additional fitness studio, or is this going to be a gym piece?
It's a fitness studio. So it'll be like, I think they're going to put another bathroom in there, maybe a changing room, something like that. But it's just continuing to be a fitness studio. They'd want to expand their offering to kids. I don't know what age kids, but maybe.
Stage competitions there where they would have a full house like on 106 on Green Street for Mass Premier Courts?
I don't think so. It's not it's like, it's a fitness studio, so you pay to go and you'll get X number
I
of
don't think it'd be big enough, Jeff,
shots a year, yeah.
for CrossFit competitions.
All right.
They're typically a larger facility than that.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'll ask, I'll find out.
All right. Bill, I have a question on how you got to your count of 59.
Yep.
I know you just explained it, but it didn't make a lot of sense.
Okay, I'm sorry. So we're required to have 79 spaces
Right.
up in the corner.
Right.
So multiply 79 by 75%,
Gives you 59.
59.1 or something like that, right?
Right.
So right now, there are 46 striped parking spaces on the lot. There's 23 around the fitness studio, and there's 23 that serve Chase Lumber. So that's, I think it's 45.
Okay, so you're actually counting the ones at Chase, because you had
Yes.
said the gravel was gonna stay separate.
Right, but we have to have paved parking.
Okay.
So the paved parking would be the 45 existing paved parking spaces,
Oh, that's gonna
plus
be
a
added.
14 additional that will stripe
think.
and is paved in the rear.
Is the rear parking in Chase currently striped? No.
No, that's all, the way it works is, I don't know if you've been up there, it's
Yeah.
a drive around.
right.
So you pull around, you order, you drive around, they put your stuff in and you drive away.
I mean, there are spaces right in the front where the two doors go in, where people go in to shop for like cabinets or, other things of that nature, hardware,
For
stuff like that.
Chase, correct.
For Chase. But I would say from my own personal experience of shopping there for Mayfair, that most of it is like, you go in, check your order, drive around, pick up any lumber or any other materials you have around the side that's closest to us, and exit. There's not really much parking for the client base there.
So one of the things I'll mention is I've done 2 facilities like this, but they were custom built. So I don't know if anybody's been down to Hingham Lumber and Hingham on Route 3A. I was the engineer for that project. And if you crank down in Hingham, or actually it's Cohasset, Hingham, that's a good story, but it's Cohasset, but it's Hingham Lumber. But if you crank those Cohasset numbers, the amount of parking required for a retail facility is massive. So one of the things we talked about with the building commissioner down there was, look, the queue should count as parking, because that's what you do. You order your stuff or you pull in, so the queue is parking. So I don't think it's a stretch to not necessarily consider that here, but at least in the back of your head when you're deciding whether or not it's having the 25% reduction is viable, to accept that queue. You can see how big the building is. I don't know the number of queues it would take, but it would probably take 20, 25 cars if they're actually queued in there.
Would the additional paved spaces around the corner have to be dedicated?
No, it's not something I think that I remember you've ever done, and what I would point you to is like the state hospital. So you have the state hospital around the back. It's a combination of office and apartments and condos, and none of those spaces are dedicated. So it's definitely something that the board in the past, when you've had multiple uses on one facility, have not required.
So from that parking area that's in the Chase lot, in their lumber yard, which is gated, so they would have to have somebody there to operate that gate.
Well, the gate, I think that the Chase lumber, if this was ever going to be used, I think those would be for employees. That's what if I was Don Chase, I'd say, you guys are parking there and leave the spaces out front for the
So
employees.
say, on that regards, then you wouldn't need a dedicated pedestrian walkway to get to that building.
You'd be walking through the Chase lumber parking lot if you were going to park.
What are the hours of operation of the business?
I don't know. I mean, if it
7
was,
days a week?
I don't know. I would say it's the gym. I'm guessing, but I'll find out. I mean, the gym I go to, it's like 5:30 in the morning till like 7 o'clock at night, and it's 6 days a week. So,
Yeah, but you have to consider that this is, it's mostly classes that they do. So it's group classes, so it's not that, I can go in at whatever time
Right.
and
No, I
you know.
understand.
Yeah.
So I think, I've driven by it during the day and it's not open. So I imagine that it's open early in the morning and then in the later, in the evening,
yeah. I go to a gym, and that's exactly right. It's open in the morning, and it's open at night, starting at like 4 o'clock. But I'll find out. I'll find out about if they do tournaments, and I'll find out about hours of operation.
Any other questions?
No. Actually, it says hours of operation of 6 to 9:30 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m.
There you go.
Yeah.
What you would
To-
expect.
How many days?
That's today. So they're open 7 days a week. No, they're closed Sundays, excuse me.
Okay.
And Mondays, 5 a.m. to noon, and then 4 to 7. So it's very split. It's a few hours in the morning, a few hours in the afternoon.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for your input, and I'll find out about the tournaments.
Are you guys here to make any comment on that particular thing? Okay. All right, it being sometime past 7:15 PM, we have public hearings on a variety of warrant articles. The first one is the Foxborough zoning bylaw to amend section 11.1 definitions and section 3.1.6D use for a new definition for warehouse and self-storage mini warehouse to delete truck terminals / general commodity public warehouse use. So, are we required to read this into the record, or
What the,
the actual definitions and everything that's
no,
there?
no. Would you like me to,
Summarize?
yes,
Thank you.
okay. So thank you, and I know, this board has talked about these zoning articles several times, but this is the official public hearing required for a zoning amendment that's scheduled to be discussed on May 8th at special town meeting. Starts at 7:30 at the high school. So this first article is Article 12. And it has to, the warrant has been published, so this number will stick. We tend to not put article numbers in public hearing notices, just because we never know for sure what the final article numbers will be. But as of today, it is finalized. So Article 12 will be with respect to zoning and for warehouse definition. Also talking about an existing trucking terminal, public, what is the terminology? Public warehouse.
Commodity
I have it
public
here. Here we go. Warehouse, trucking terminals, general commodity public warehouse. So, actually, I feel like, does that always say warehouse there? I feel like I have to fix that. seems like it might be a typo. Sorry, I'm looking at my handout. We have two handouts here. We have one handout is the explanatory, and then we have this, which is not an official document. I just didn't have the official warrant at the time.
Yep.
And so I wanted to make sure you had the actual language from the warrant, so it's kind of a excerpted version. So just to start back from square one for anybody watching from home, last summer, it was brought to light, I think, to a lot of people in town and the board about our zoning definition, our use table, particularly as it pertained to trucking terminals. That sort of caused us to ask the question of, does Foxborough want to, right now, we allow trucking terminals in town, and I think there was a consensus, at least amongst the members that attended the public hearing for Route 1, that wasn't something, and I think this board brought up a lot of concerns around trucking terminals and just that general use and nature. So we after that time, I'm still not sure what was going to happen to 2 Washington. We decided to take a hard look. With this article, we are creating a definition of self-storage mini warehouse. We have that use in our use table today, but we don't have a definition. This will assist the building commissioner in any sort of future enforcement or determinations, and we now have a definition. Then the next part of the article has to do with a new definition of warehouse. As of today, we don't have a definition of warehouse. We do have a definition of trucking terminal, general commodity, public warehouse, but that's all one definition. So what we're proposing to do, and it's rather lengthy, is create a definition of warehouse that allows a general warehouse use, but restricts otherwise some of these newer forms of warehouse iterations we've seen evolve, and that I think most of the concerns last summer came from. Things like fulfillment centers or other types of high volume, where you're not just storing things for the medium or the short or the long term, but you're actually maybe taking them in, repackaging them, processing them, or somehow doing them and then having them go out directly to a consumer. So we're trying to avoid that. We do want to allow folks to store their materials. We do have plenty of warehouses in town. That use alone for your more traditional warehouse has been something we've had a lot of complaints about. There will be some trucks associated with that. We're always going to have some trucks in town. I think the goal here is to ensure that we're not attracting heavily trucking-oriented businesses, kind of like what we saw where there were hundreds of tractor trailers going to be stored on the site, and dozens of bays, and really it was really centered around the trucking and the input and the output of goods, as opposed to where a warehouse is more about the storage of goods. It might be short-term, we might still see some trucks, but it's not going to be at the same level where you're just there. It's just more of a short-term turnaround spot. So the way we structured this first Article 12 is first to create these definitions, self-storage, mini warehouse, and then warehouse. That's so that they exist today. The body would vote on those first. Then we'd go into the use table, and that would be to create a new use for this new definition, warehouse. So right now, we don't call out warehouse. All the warehouses that have been done in town have been done on another more general provision of the bylaw, and actually has been allowed mostly by right. That's why we've seen this board hasn't seen as many as you might think you would, because it hasn't been by special permit. We're now proposing that warehouses would be by special permit in all districts that are currently this use, the trucking terminal, public warehouse use is allowed. So we're not changing that. We're just taking away the trucking terminals and the commodity and the public warehouse, that word terminology, replacing it with warehouse. And then finally, this last complicated part of this 4-part article is deleting that use, truck terminal, trucking terminal, general commodity, public warehouse, so we'd have to delete it. So we bundled those because we wouldn't want to do one and not the other of those. They kind of are almost an all or nothing proposition, and it's somewhat sequential, so that we create the new definitions, we create the new use, and then finally, when we have those in place, we delete the old use. So that's kind of the logic between Article 12. Barney, any thoughts on that? Barney's here as my support for and co-drafter on many of these things. All right, so anybody from the public? I guess I'm not the one who asked that, but through the chair. Anybody from
No
the
problem.
Like Paige.
You did just get a certificate, so.
I did. I now am a supervisor, so. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next article, which is going to be Article 13. And that is something I think I would ask Barney to come up to the table for, just because I think he could do a good job explaining the reasoning behind this one, and it would be nice to hear from someone else.
So again, this is a public hearing for the warrant Article 13 for Foxborough zoning bylaw, amend Section 11.1, definitions for auto graveyard, setback, tattoo parlor, and junkyard. Are we equating tattoo parlors with those other uses?
No, nope.
Just happen to be a good place for them?
Yeah, we're just cleaning up. We're doing some
One
housekeeping.
public hearing before we start the next one.
Do we need to do that? Do we need to
Sorry, what?
close the- Do we need to close the first public hearing before we?
I guess you should, yeah. and-
So I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing for 11.1 definitions in Section 31.6, new definition, warehouse, et cetera, et cetera.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Quickly, while I have you here, then, you know what happens next. Would you like to make a quick report on that, whether the board supports this article, the warehouse article?
All those in favor of doing
And
said
why?
report?
Because we talked about it exhaustively.
Yes. In favor of doing such a report to the body?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's move forward then.
Oh, me, okay. Oh, no, you, go.
For
You.
Article 13.
Sorry, I'm writing notes, and then I realized I thought you guys were waiting for me.
Do I need to introduce myself, or? Barnett over at 10 Ames Road, Chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals. So the definitions that are in Article 13, at least definitions of auto graveyard, tattoo parlor, and junkyard, were requested by the building commissioner. Junkyard is currently defined, tattoo parlor is not, and auto graveyard is not, even though those particular words or terms are utilized in the table of uses. The definition for setback is something that I discussed with the building commissioner, and that arose out of a question that came to our attention. And this definition is consistent with how both the building commissioner, past and present, and the zoning board have addressed that issue. So each of these definitions would be clarifying a term that either is defined or is currently undefined, and giving the building commissioner the appropriate enforcement authority that he feels he needs. There is a question, however, that I have with the definition of auto graveyard, and I want to bring that to your attention because it's been brought to my attention by members of the advisory committee. If you look at the definition of auto graveyard, the first sentence, the last clause, the words that state pending their destruction, removal to another location, or other disposition. That has been in there from the time I first prepared this definition. It was not until individuals on AdCom, and this was after Paige and I met with them, questioned us about it, that I started to think that perhaps what I am doing there is both inconsistent with the second sentence and also restricting the definition. When you think of a graveyard, you think of the final resting place, whether it's of a person's bones or of junk. In this case, perhaps I'm creating a situation of purgatory, because something else will occur after something is stored and collected there. So I think there are really two alternatives we can go with. Number one is to keep the wording as it is, and at some point in time, the building commissioner and/or the zoning board would have to deal with it, or amend it at town meeting. And I have two suggestions as to an amendment at town meeting. Number one would just be to delete those words altogether. Number two would be to delete the word pending and put it in its place, which may include their destruction, removal to another location or other disposition. I think it's best if we just eliminate that clause altogether, but I'm leaving it to your discretion. Either way, it would take an amendment at town meeting.
So is it started from dismantled to disposition? Is that what we get theoretically?
So we would say, ruined, dismantled, or inoperable motor vehicles or motor vehicle parts, period.
Okay.
So again, the words pending their destruction, removal to another location or other disposition would be eliminated by an amendment at town meeting.
Question.
Yep.
On the second sentence, is it, are we trying to set up almost like an alternative there, that if it includes all that, plus other items of junk,
Yes,
and then it's not an auto graveyard?
correct.
As long as there's other stuff there besides
Right.
auto parts,
Right.
or whatever.
Right, so if you have washing machines and old couches, et cetera, it could be considered a junkyard. This
we
would
just
also
go
be
down.
consistent, without that clause that we're just talking about, would be consistent with the definition in the state statutes that deals with the regulation of junkyards.
Okay.
It's a little wordier,
Yep.
and I think it's a little bit clearer, but it would be consistent with the state statutory definition.
Any other questions? Anything from you, Paige?
No, so I think, would the board then be open to recommending on town meeting floor, maybe this board actually making the motion to amend it to, by deleting the whole pending, their destruction and so on? Is that, maybe that, if you wanted to take a vote on that, based on that elimination of that language, might be good.
I actually think that's the cleaner way to do it. Just take it right out.
So, do we need a motion, or what do you want to do with the, just?
Well, you could move to close the hearing and then move to recommend it with that deletion. And then we'll have to go about, the mechanisms at town meeting to do it. I'll probably include it in the report, that, that deletion would be part of it, but I know you'd have to have a motion written on town meeting and submit it, yes. So Barney and I could work on that and get that.
Before we close that hearing, can we
Sure.
go down to junkyard? So, maybe I'm being overly sensitive here, but we've just been kind of through some junkyard dog stuff. So in the last line on that, the abandonment of junk, do we have a definition of junk?
Yes,
Oh, do we?
there was a definition in the bylaw, yes.
All right.
Parenthetically, I spoke with the building commissioner this afternoon about the auto graveyard issue, and he's in agreement that we should delete that wording.
Okay.
And then, I don't know if I might have missed it, the tattoo parlor, we all know we're not going for a tattoo parlor, that's just creating a definition. But we are seeing some cosmetic use of, like estheticians under medical care, we are seeing, eyebrows and that type of thing. So we want to make sure it's clear, the differentiation between sort of body art, and then more aesthetic art. So this kind of helps Scott in his determinations, keep that line clear.
So under current regulations, are we allowed to have traditional tattoo parlors in town, or we're not?
No, I remember, I think
I
there's
think
one
in
place,
the,
I think on
in the
Route
S1,
1.
I
Yeah,
think
we
in the
have
S1.
to
You have to
provide,
allow it in one district,
Yeah.
S1.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
in the S1. and I
By
think-
special permit.
So it's restricted, yeah.
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing for warrant article number 13.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yes, you may.
I have a question on setbacks. So, I like it, it simplifies things. But if you go to section 4.1.6 in our current zoning, at the end of it, the last line, it's about yards. Every part of a required yard shall be open, blah, 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 provided no such projection now expanding the minimum side yard more than 24 inches, they're talking about shells. But here's my question, this is the last line. Unroofed entrance porches or terraces which do not rise above the height of the floor level of the ground floor may extend to a required yard space, provided the area shall not exceed 200 square feet. Now, this definition
Doesn't include that.
doesn't include that, which I think we should get rid of the last line of 4.1.6. This is clearer. So I'm just pointing that out. I don't know if you could do it on town meeting or if that's next time.
Yeah,
Maybe
we
next
could.
time.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll have to add that to our list.
Add it to your list. I mean, as long as, I mean, it's gonna be an interpretation, and as long as, building commissioner and Barney are okay with the new definition, it really doesn't matter, but
What'd you need?
Oh, no, I was just gonna grab my piece of paper back, so I don't lose, it goes to my, it's part of my thing.
I'll give it to you.
Okay,
Okay,
I thought we were done.
Okay, I made the motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we'll show in the report that we're gonna make an amendment as necessary. Okay. Article 14 is to see if the town will vote to amend the code of the town of Foxborough, Massachusetts, chapter 275, and new subsection addition, and of 10.517, limited site plan review.
Okay, so on this one, I feel like a broken record because we've said this so much, but we have to do it. This comes about, as you are aware, when we did the site plan review, limited site plan review for the 25 Chestnut Street site. There had been a case where the applicant had gone to the zoning board saying that because childcare facilities are exempt under zoning and they can't require a special permit, that site plan review wouldn't be required, and in the past it is administratively handled by the building commissioner. Ultimately, the zoning board did not support that and supported the building commissioner. They came through here and we did our limited site plan review, and the project was approved. Under the state statute, you know, it's a use that is allowed. We can just look at certain provisions. So what we did, Barney and I, Gabby and I worked together and came up with a new subsection under the site plan review bylaw that would basically codify this new process. It's more limited than the full site plan review because it only reflects those provisions that the state statute calls out that we can look at. But it does this way provide a transparent and clear process for everybody to use. No questions, and it follows the process we did follow as a result of the zoning board's findings. So we are recommending that this be adopted, and we're already doing it, and so it just codifies something that we're already doing.
Any questions?
I have to say that doing it this way was really helpful in working with the Hindu temple.
Right.
So this is a good step.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Nothing further in terms of the, well, it's lengthy, but it covers everything.
Right. It is lengthy.
All right, so.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Article 14.
Now we're gonna close the public hearing
Oh,
first.
sorry,
Anybody in the public?
my bad.
Barney and Bill and
Okay.
everybody?
It's a motion to close the public hearing on Article 14.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now I'll make a motion to accept Article 14 as presented
Make a positive recommendation.
and make a positive recommendation to town meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next is public hearing warrant article of Foxborough zoning bylaw amendment section 10.5. What did we just do that, 10.53?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Amendment section 1.3.1, 9.6.10, and 9.7.4, 10.55 to replace town planner with the director of land use and economic development and publish our certificate.
Isn't it convenient? She got the certificate at the same night.
I'm telling you.
We're gonna have to add more letters. So this is pretty much a housekeeping item, you know, interspersed through the zoning bylaw where references to the town planner. I actually haven't even been called that since I started. I was the planning director, but, you know, that's just being nitpicky. So at this point, while we were doing our zoning cleanup, we just figured we would clean it up, so we referred to my actual title and then, or designee thereof. So since Gabby, we all know who really does the work around here.
I'm going to get a nameplate that says designee.
There we go. I like that.
And I'm gonna get one that says winning supervisor.
Good. Okay.
Make a motion to close the public hearing on Article 15.
Second that?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Gonna make a recommendation?
I guess I will. I'll make a recommendation to accept Article 15 as written, and I'll make a positive recommendation town meeting floor.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving right along. Article 16, Foxborough zoning bylaw to amend section 9.4.2, new language for special permit in the S1 district.
So the history on this one was, we discovered that this was what we believed to be a throwback from older provisions that required that an applicant for a special permit within the S1 district meet with the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
And in advance of a public hearing. And what was really interesting is that it was very ambiguous as to the intent. It just basically said, prior to the required public hearing before the special permit granting authority, the applicant shall meet informally with the select board. The select board may present its comments to the SPGA before the public hearing date. So we're thinking that was at a time when maybe the select board had a more active role in development and day-to-day operations. At this point, it actually puts them in kind of an uncomfortable position because they really have no jurisdiction.
That came up with the warehouse,
It
didn't
did,
it?
yeah.
Right.
Did. So, but rather than just delete it, what we did is, this was Barney's idea, was actually to throw me in there. Then that way, before an application for S1 comes to us, they actually have to meet with our office, and that'll give us an opportunity to look at the permitting required and kind of get some heads up for all of us. So, we just are suggesting we incorporate that process rather than sending them to the select board, which kind of throws the select board into the fire and also confuses people as to why and what is going to be accomplished with that meeting.
So the old language that says they have to do, is that going to be deleted or?
That would be deleted in its entirety and replaced with
This, okay.
this, yes.
That'd be much better. Any other questions? Anyone in the audience? Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing on Article 16.
Second that?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion for recommendation?
Come on, Jeff, you haven't done one yet.
I'd make a motion that we recommend Article 16 as written and prepare that recommendation for town meeting.
Is there a second to that?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 17, warrant article to zoning bylaw amend section 9.1.42, new language for special permit in the S1 district. Oh, no, sorry, that was the one we just did, rather to say, Foxborough zoning bylaw amend section 10.66 to replace wording.
Yes, so this one is really simple. Again, we were looking at the bylaw, we realized that the section regarding environmental impact statements refers to a paragraph D. However, in that entire section, there is no such paragraph. Everything is numbered. So looking back at old bylaws, we discovered that prior to codification, there was a paragraph D in that. So we think it was a typo that wasn't caught when the recodification occurred. So we just simply are recommending that it gets renumbered rather than being lettered. No change to the content.
What year did we do that recodification? Do you remember?
2009. 2012?
It was 12
I think,
or 11?
I think 11, because I think Mark Resnick was still here. He left in turning 11.
We started talking about it in 2010.
So a good 12 years.
12 years later, we got this.
Okay. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there a motion to recommend?
Make a motion to recommend Article 17 as written, and a positive recommendation to town meeting floor.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
That's all of us.
That's it? That's all of them?
So I do have one request. So this handout that was done, I did find a typo on it, on the front. I'm glad we talked about it, because I need to delete warehouse at the beginning of it. It should say truck terminal, general commodity public warehouse, so I will fix that. But we'd like to have this available at town meeting as a handout. And Frank would like, prior to anything going to town meeting floor, he would like the planning board to vote to do this, to vote, to have this available at town meeting. So if you were comfortable with that, we could go ahead and get this produced for the May town meeting and get it circulated in advance, hopefully, as well.
This or this?
The summary. The-
Left hand.
Left hand, okay.
Yeah.
So we need a motion for that?
Yes.
I'd make a motion that the board affirm the use of this summary with modifications as a handout at annual town meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Very well. All right. So.
Jeff, when were you a selectman?
Excuse me?
When were you a selectman?
I think 1987.
I think you're right.
7 to 90?
Yeah.
So you were the one who brought up the selectmen, when they changed the zoning back then, the selectmen did site plan. Remember that? Selectmen used to do site plan? So then the planning board took it over, but the selectmen were a little peeved, so they still wanted a little piece of it, and you were one of the members of that board there. I think it was you, Hickox,
And
Jerry?
Dick Thompson? No, Dick Thompson. Oh, or
So
after that, it was.
it was
Mike
appropriate that you
Senza.
voted to eliminate it.
Mike? Okay. Thank you for that bit of history.
Yes, thank you so much.
I can't remember yesterday.
Okay, it being it's not, it's sometime past 7:45 PM, we continue public hearing, site plan review, 61 East Belcher Road, for construction of a 6,250 plus or minus square foot, one-story building to be used as contractor bays for Blue Diamond Realty Trust, or as I like to call them, Blue Oyster Cult.
So, Mr. Chairman, good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Buckley from Bay Colony Group. I'm here representing Blue Diamond, and with me are Mr. Mahoney, Miss Mahoney. And what we have is and actually you have in front of you in a small version, is we've met with the board a couple of times, I think at least twice. And we've had a modification based on the comments that were given to us by the town's consultant, Environmental Partners. We went through 2 iterations of comments with them. The second iteration was back in March, and they were fairly minor. I met with Ms. Jordan on them at the time, and we agreed to make the changes on the plans. So we haven't done that yet. Actually, I have done them yet, but I have done them, but I haven't submitted them because I wanted to just do one more set of revisions and include any approval and any issues that were brought up tonight. But what I can do is just very briefly go through the small changes that they requested us to make, and so you can judge for yourself whether you want to see them for. But so this is the drawing, and this would be sheet 3 if you want to look on it yourself. So the comments that were made by the consultant is that they wanted us to make sure that this swale in the back was 1%, so we added some spot grades to show that. At the entrance here, because I don't know if you recall, but we slid the whole thing like 25 feet or so in order to move it further away from this wetland at the request of the conservation. So that moved us right up to the edge of the driveway here. So Environmental Partners was concerned and said we should put a bollard here and stripe this so that cars don't get hit. So we agreed to that. They wanted us to add a note around the outside because The site is going to be heavily graded, and around the edges, we're going to be leaving a 10-foot buffer strip, which is what's required under the zoning. So we show a limit of clearing, but they wanted to make sure that we, after we cut these slopes down, that we permanently stabilize them. So we added that note to that. And then actually only other major, actually none of them were major, but the only other change to the drawing was this. On sheet 5, if you want to go to that, and they wanted us to add this note that says the shown shall conform to the Mass DOT standard M2022. And that was it. So just open any questions. Anything else?
How you gonna contain that sloped area there? Just a riprap or something?
No, it'll be a 3-to-1 slope, and the reality is if it's dirt, we will loam and seed it, and if it's just ledge, which I'm guessing up in this area here, it will just be stabilized by itself, because if it's a rock slope. But perhaps down in these areas here, will be, after loam and seed. Up here, this is gonna be rock. It's not gonna have to be stabilized. We understand, we know that it requires to remove more than 200 yards of material. We expect that to be one of the conditions, which requires a earth removal permit. Reading earth removal permits, I just didn't know this, but it was, they're only good for a year. So this is not a one-year operation. So we haven't kind of figured that out yet, but we will. We have to go before the selectmen for that. But for now, we won't be doing any earth removal off the site. There'll be removal on the site. There'll be earth movement on the site. There'll be production of material on the site. Nothing will be taken off the site, so we get our earth removal permit, which is what the permit is. Moving off the site is what the permit is for. So that concludes me. Answer any questions, or?
Not really.
I'm just trying to go through environmental partners and BCG's, commentary back and forth, and it looks like most of them have been closed. There's a couple of items that you've already reviewed with us. Some things about spot grades and a minimum of 1% slope, and
So Bill, are you changing access to this, or are you still proposing to use the
driveway.
Yep. It's a driveway, although we do have down here, we are showing, this is a gravel road.
Right.
There is an easement through here, there's an easement through here that allows the access in the future, but that is not, it's steep.
Yeah. I
So
know.
that's
If you-
not-
You would have that in conversation.
Yeah, it's not gonna be an everyday access. The access will continue to be down through this private driveway.
So that access actually goes, it abuts the DiGirolmo's property.
And it goes through DiGirolamo's property.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That was part of the variance the ZBA granted forever ago for the site, for that private driveway, which is, not allowed under our zoning. The frontage is on East Belcher Road, but all those lots access off the private driveway. And at the time, S&S Realty Trust owned some of that backland. Frank Spillane came in and asked the board to, as a condition of approval, to grant access to that through that lot, which is now the DiGirolamo lot, but at the time it was nothing. And that's a condition. So, and Mr. Mahoney has been talking to Mr. DiGirolamo about it. It's not a surprise. I personally have talked to Mr. DiGirolamo, so I can first person answer that he understands, he's seen the plans.
Yeah, that is steep, that's 50.
Bill, I do have one question, and it didn't occur to me before, otherwise I would have asked you.
Sure.
The driveway, who owns it? Is it everybody My concern is that, with all the amount of trucks that are going to be needed to remove
The earth, yeah.
the earth and all of that, who's gonna take care of the damage to the road?
So it's a private driveway that everybody has a right to pass over. There's no association to take care of it. What normally ends up is Mr. Mahoney ends up taking care of it because he has the expertise, right? He's the expertise too with it. So the answer is, it was not a mistake by any, it should have been done when the lots were conveyed out, but it hasn't been. So now everybody owns that portion of the driveway that's on their property. But that they have to deal with it because it's their livelihood. So I'm not sure it's anything the board would be interested in getting involved in. It hasn't been an issue. I know that Paige talked to the police and fire in the first go-around, and I know there's documentation in your files that they don't have an issue with it. So I guess that answers it. It's not probably the answer we want to hear.
Pieces that were like if trucks and cars are parking along that driveway, and how does that, just operationally, I know you're saying that it's not, we don't want to get involved in that stuff, but we're
Right.
also the first one that seems to get complaints, or maybe the second, I don't know, maybe you guys get them first, but moving forward, as we see more intensity of use, the issues we typically see are, access maybe being restricted, and again, condition of road, deterioration, so
Right.
who are we going, if they call us and say, oh, these people are using it so much, who do we turn to? Can we make this applicant, is he willing to take on, maybe not legal responsibility, but at least to say that, he'll maintain the road to, passable condition or whatever we need for public safety, or?
I would say yes, because he has to maintain it for himself, to access his facility.
And there's no parking allowed on the road. There's no parking signs all up and down the access road. Occasionally someone would park there, but it's not allowed.
Right.
And it was not allowed, I think, when you granted the permit originally 20 years ago.
It's one business that creates the issue. So I guess the short answer is, you just heard it. If it's an issue with maintenance of the road, Mr. Mahoney would deal with it. As far as parking and stuff, though,
Yeah, enforcement-wise, that's tough, because you're not going to be able to manage enforcement.
right.
And there are signs, you say, and people park up and down the road anyway?
Well, there are signs and people park right in front of the signs.
Yeah.
So, they'll move.
Yeah.
But it's, the thing is, the timing's not really an issue as much for us. Just because we're there early in the morning and we're there late in the afternoon. We're not there usually on the weekends. Weekends are tough, that would be tough on the weekends, but we're not there on the weekends, so.
Do they have after-school stuff too?
No.
I'd say later in the day, some days there's nothing happening.
Yeah.
It's kind of hit or miss, really. I think the weekends would be the worst.
Are they?
And I only know that because we have cameras, I can see what's going on in the cameras if I look, but again, we're not there, so.
It's not hindering you.
And back to what Bill said, is we have the second building on the left.
Yeah.
So the way those lots were done is everyone owns in front of their building for maintenance. Unfortunately, I'm the only guy that could have the ability to pave the entire road because we have all that stuff to do that. So, and then we own the end lot. So
Right.
Really, I would say that whether I like it or not, we'll end up maintaining the road. Because we have to go all the way to the end. You know what I mean? So
To get
if
there,
you were a person that was in that subdivision, clearly we use most of the road. But, and like Bill said, there should have been an association put in place. It was never done. And currently, we maintain the road ourselves. Fixing manhole covers or whatever it needs to be done. And it doesn't seem to be that much interest. I guess maybe they watch us fix it, so they're not really.
There's a surprise.
But that's how it is,
I don't have any questions.
No?
So,
Nothing to read into the record there?
No, I mean, the environmental, the most commentary is from environmental partners. The Wildlands Trust, you know, put some things in there at one point, back in December. Gabby had some correspondence back and forth with them. I don't see anything from police or fire in here. And the fees have been paid, so.
There was documentation from police and fire, wasn't
Yeah,
there?
I think so. Yeah.
I definitely have emails in there from Dave Laracy saying there were no issues
Yeah.
with the access and that have no concerns.
And Scott Turner, that's pretty much it. So, unless there's something in the back here I missed.
Yeah, we had reviewed previous correspondence at the first hearing.
Yeah.
The first hearing, we were still waiting for comments from environmental partners, so that's why we had to continue the hearing.
Yeah, I mean, there's just old stuff in here too from
Yeah.
John Mitchell Moore and the ZBA, so. I don't think there's much here for us to have to comment on. That being said, is there,
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Looking for an approval here?
Yep.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
With
With
standard,
standard conditions.
Standard conditions, yes, ma'am.
and the understanding that the applicant will,
Continue to maintain the road in its current condition.
Second?
And the plans revised as discussed at the meeting.
Yeah.
That too.
and subject to earth removal,
Man,
Board of Select Board.
Anybody else?
Just throwing it all in there.
it's okay.
Second.
Gary seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 What, Jeff's looking very thoughtful over there.
That's all right.
Thank you for your patience. And for being a good neighbor to your neighbors. Is there anything else we have tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
From, 7 Washington Street, we did that?
We did that.
Yeah, we did. Okay, good. All right. All right. So motion to
I
adjourn?
made it, and Gary seconded it.
There you go. All those in favor? Aye. Have a good evening.